There is no enemy more patient than weakness. It waits. Not in the battle, not in the blow, but in the moment before, the hesitation, the slight delay between thought and action, that flicker of doubt before the blade is drawn. That is where men break. To walk the path of mastery is not to search for peace. It is to seek what tempers you. Fire does not purify what it will not touch, and the undisciplined mind cannot withstand its own storms. Musashi understood this. He did not wait for strength to find him. He built it, in solitude, in silence, with sword and ink. Day after day, stroke after stroke, until the man and the blade became one. In the Hyoho Sanjugo Kajo, he writes, "Think lightly of yourself and deeply of the world." Why? Because the self is noise. It cries out for comfort, praise, escape. But the world? The world does not care. The river does not pause for your excuses. The mountain does not lean to comfort your fear. You must rise to meet it, or be buried by it. This is not a speech. This is a reckoning. A call to every man who claims to want clarity, focus, control, but still lives on reaction, craving, and convenience. You do not need more thoughts. You need disciplines. 10 disciplines. Forged not in theory, but in fire. Not adopted when convenient, but lived, especially when unwanted. These are not habits. These are weapons. They cut through confusion. They burn off softness. They leave only what is solid, unyielding, sharp, and immovable. Discipline 1. Rise without negotiation. Do not ask the body if it is ready. Do not consult the mood. Do not wait for motivation. Stand, begin, act. A blade does not warm up before it cuts. The sun does not vote before it rises. Why then do you treat your purpose like an option? Each morning is a confrontation between who you were yesterday and who you are willing to become now. Train the act of beginning. Make it sacred. Make it immediate. Do not scroll. Do not stall. Do not think. Move. That is where discipline begins. Not in the grand act, but in the first movement. A man who cannot win that first moment will not win the hour, and a man who loses the hour will lose the day. So rise without permission, without delay, without softness. And in that rising, remind the mind, I command you, not the other way around. Discipline begins at the point where emotion demands you stop. You feel the pull, to wait, to react, to justify. But the warrior does not follow feeling. He follows form. There is a way to hold the sword. There is a time to strike. And there is a mind that moves beneath the noise, unmoved by the scream, the wound, the fear. This is the second discipline. Do what must be done without emotion. You do not need to feel like moving to move. You do not need to feel ready to act. The blade cuts, not because it wants to, but because it must. Emotions are clouds. They swirl, shift, expand, and vanish. They do not carry truth. They carry motion, and motion is not direction. A storm may rise in your chest, but if your hand obeys it, you are no longer a warrior. You are a servant to your own chaos. Musashi understood this. He faced men who wanted to kill him, not once, but dozens of times. He watched their anger sharpen their swings and dull their clarity. He did not swing hardest. He swung with precision, because he was not there to win emotionally. He was there to win completely. In the Book of 5 Rings, he writes, "The spirit of the thing is to win, not to feel victorious, not to act powerful, just to win, clean, fast, without waste." Do you think the mountain shifts when the wind screams? Do you think the hawk cries when it dives? The natural world does not wait for approval. It acts in accordance with what must happen. You must become the same. Feel the weight in your chest? Acknowledge it, but do not kneel to it. Feel the rage in your throat. Let it rise, but let it pass. Do not act from fire, act through it. The man who lashes out is already conquered. The man who hesitates to act because he does not feel like it is already dead. Your actions must be trained in silence, not trained to react to feeling, but to override it. When you wake and feel exhausted, train anyway. When your thoughts scream to avoid the conversation, speak anyway. When your chest tightens before the challenge, step anyway. Because if your choices only live in the realm of feeling, you are not a man, you are a leaf in the wind. And the wind is not your master. Look to the pine tree buried in snow. It does not ask the winter to pass. It bends slightly and holds. That is your way. Discipline is not coldness. It is clarity. It does not reject emotion. It simply refuses to serve it. So act when it's hard. Move when it burns. Speak when you fear silence. And remain untouched by the flame. That is the warrior's path. Not numb, but unmoved. Not frozen, but directed. The blade does not argue. It does not explain. It does what it was made to do. So must you. The difference between a warrior and a wanderer is not talent. It is training, done when it is least wanted. Anyone can train when inspired. Anyone can act when it's convenient. But the path hardens only under pressure, and pressure never asks if you're ready. This is the third discipline. Train when you don't want to, not once, not sometimes, but again and again, especially when the body resists, especially when the mind lies. The soft man asks how he feels. The hardened one does not ask, he trains. Musashi knew this. He did not become invincible through comfort. He slept in caves. He practiced his cuts in the rain. He sparred with wooden swords until his hands split open. No teacher, no audience, no permission. Only discipline, pure, relentless, silent. Because there is no final exam for strength. Only today's task, done or not done. And when it is done, tomorrow asks again. You do not rise for applause. You do not sweat for inspiration. You rise because the training is the path, not the goal, the path itself. Skip the training and you skip the way. It is not an accessory to growth. It is the furnace. No one sees the man in the cold morning, wrapping his hands in silence, repeating the same strike for the 1,000th time. No one cheers when the muscles ache, when the mind screams to stop. There is no medal for that. But there is this. A deeper self, a sharper edge, a mind that no longer waits for permission. That is why you train, not to prepare for battle, but to become the kind of man who doesn't need to prepare. Because readiness is who he is. Discipline is not in the act itself. It is in the refusal to wait for ideal conditions. If it's raining, train. If it's late, train. If you failed yesterday, train. You are not your excuses. You are not your mood. You are what you do when everything inside you begs for softness. Train anyway. When the body is tired, the session begins. When the spirit is low, the test begins. When the mind is scattered, the focus begins. Do not wait for alignment. You create it through motion. You build it with sweat. Not once, but forever. That is the way. Look to the bamboo. It bends in the wind, but only after years of growing straight under pressure. It does not reach for the sun in comfort. It stretches upward even through stone. So must you. If you seek mastery, train when it's dark. Train when it's quiet. Train when there is no one left watching. That is where strength is born. Not from motivation, not from rituals. From the simple, brutal decision, I do it anyway. The mind is not overwhelmed because it is weak. It is overwhelmed because it is cluttered. You carry too much, too many voices, too many tabs open, too many attachments to things that never belong to your path. This is the fourth discipline. Eliminate the unnecessary, not later, not when you burn out. Now the warrior sharpens not just his blade, but his life. There is a weight in everything, in your habits, in your surroundings, in your conversations. Each one either brings clarity or corrosion. Musashi lived by this. He wandered without possessions. He trained without attachments. He refused luxury. He wrote, "Do not have preferences in anything." Not because he hated pleasure, but because preference becomes craving, and craving leads to distortion. When your mind is filled with distraction, you cannot perceive what matters. And the warrior must see clearly, always. A single vine can strangle a pine tree if left to grow unchecked. So too will small indulgences wrap themselves around your will until it can no longer rise. That is why we cut. You must look at your life like a battlefield. Every object, every voice, every repeated thought, ask it, does this make me sharper? Does this anchor me? Does this support the path? If not, remove it. A tool not used becomes a burden. A relationship not grounded becomes a leash. A possession not necessary becomes a prison. You were not born to decorate your cage. You were born to break through its walls. You don't need a perfect schedule. You need fewer distractions. You don't need more energy. You need fewer drains. You don't need more inspiration. You need less noise. Clarity is not something you find. It is what remains when you remove what doesn't belong. The tree grows by letting go of dead branches. The river flows by cutting through rock. The warrior advances by stripping himself bare. So cut the excess, cut the indulgence, cut the noise, cut the just in case. You will be afraid to lose comfort, afraid to become invisible, afraid to stand alone without your trophies. But silence is not emptiness, it is space. And space is where discipline breathes. You do not need more to become more. You need less, with precision. Minimalism is not aesthetic, it is war. Against the part of you that hoards weakness, against the clutter that dulls your edge. Musashi never decorated his life. He emptied it so the sword could move faster, so his thoughts could cut deeper, so his spirit could stand in wind and not be pulled. The warrior clears the field before he draws the blade. So take this moment and begin removing. One item, one excuse, one habit. Burn what weighs you down, and watch what remains stand straighter. Pain is not your enemy, it is your invitation to grow, to see, to separate what is fleeting from what is real. This is the fifth discipline. Sit with the pain, do not flee. You want to move, to escape, to distract, to reach for anything, food, noise, praise, movement, memory. But the warrior does not move when pain arrives. He stays, because he knows what hurts is what needs attention, and what we avoid controls us. Musashi was no stranger to pain. He did not run from it. He did not drown it. He carved it into ink. He turned it into form. He fought not only men, but the aches of hunger, the burn of isolation, the silence of loss. And in that silence, he found shape. Pain is not weakness. Pain is a mirror. It shows you where you are soft, where you are clinging, where you have not let go. Do not flinch. Do not react. Do not explain. Just sit. Let it burn. Let it ache. Let it rise like fire up your spine and into your skull, and do not move. The mind will beg. It will lie. It will whisper. This is too much. You shouldn't feel this. Make it stop. But pain is not the problem. Hesitation is. Flight is. Distraction is. The man who cannot sit with his pain will betray himself to avoid it. He will fold. He will numb. He will run in circles and call it a journey. But the one who sits still becomes stone, not hardened in denial, but solid in understanding. Because he has faced the fire and lived, you must become that stone, not out of pride, but out of necessity. The world will cut you, people will leave, your body will fail, your plans will collapse. And when it all falls silent, you will sit in the dark, alone with yourself. And that is when the training begins. You will feel everything, every regret, every loss, every mistake, every truth you buried under noise. Let it come. Let it break you open. Let it carve you clean. Because once the pain has nothing left to grip, you are free. Not because you escaped, but because you remained. The pine tree does not move to avoid the snow. It bears the weight until the storm passes. That is your posture. That is your way. If you run now, you'll run forever. But if you sit, even shaking, and refuse to flee, you'll become someone pain can no longer command, and that man cannot be stopped. Your attention is the front gate of your mind. Leave it unguarded, and you will be conquered before you even raise your sword. This is the sixth discipline. Guard your focus like a fortress, not like a soft border, not like a preference, but like your life depends on it, because it does. The undisciplined mind is not lazy. It is scattered, pulled apart by every sound, every screen, every demand for reaction. But the warrior does not give away his vision. He narrows it, like a hawk tracking prey in the storm. The modern world does not need your attention. It feeds on it. It steals your clarity and sells it back to you in fragments, short, shallow, soulless. You must reclaim it, not just for productivity, for presence, for depth, for the ability to see. Musashi wrote, "Perceive that which cannot be seen with the eye." You cannot do this while distracted. You cannot do this while scrolling. You cannot do this while answering every call for your time. Clarity is not a switch. It is a discipline, and it begins with refusal. Refuse the noise. Refuse the urgency. Refuse the addiction to stimulation. Close the gates. Let silence fill the room again. Let boredom return. Let the senses sharpen. The sword must be held with two hands, so must your attention. No split grip, no partial presence, no watching while thinking, scrolling while eating, planning while listening. One thing, fully. That is the way. If you chase 10 birds, you catch none. If you split your mind, you split your power. And if you dilute your presence, you invite defeat before the battle begins. There is no multitasking in mastery. Only movement without leak. Only vision without blur. The pine tree grows straight because it reaches for one sun. The river flows with force because it follows one path. So too must you. Remove the noise, daily. Wake without your phone. Train without music. Sit in silence. Let your mind learn stillness like a blade learns the whetstone. Each time you protect your attention, you thicken your walls. And behind those walls, your power returns. Not because you are doing more, but because you are leaking less. The enemy cannot conquer a man whose focus is impenetrable. The warrior does not let the world scatter him. He decides what enters. He filters every input like a blade filters light. Because what you let in will shape what you become. So guard your mind like the last stronghold of your soul. Let the rest burn outside the walls. The need to be seen is the enemy of inner strength. As long as you depend on applause, you are owned by those who offer it. This is the seventh discipline. Live without needing applause. Not because validation is evil, but because it is fragile. And a warrior cannot build his foundation on anything that breaks under silence. You train in the shadows so that when the light finds you, you no longer need it. You must learn to act without audience, to speak without echo, to choose what is right, even if no one ever knows you did it. Musashi walked alone, not for show, not out of bitterness, but because he refused to bend his path just to walk beside those who didn't understand it. The applause of the crowd is a trap, a golden leash. You think you are admired, but slowly you are being trained to perform. You alter your pace. You polish your edge. You hesitate before moving, not to assess the strategy, but to check the crowd. This is not mastery. This is slavery in disguise. So withdraw. Withdraw not from people, but from dependence. Withdraw from the hunger to be liked. Withdraw from the chase for attention. Withdraw from the poison of needing to be understood. True discipline is invisible. It does not announce itself. It does not parade its sharpness. It sharpens, alone, in silence. There is power in the unseen, in the man who does not post, in the man who does not justify, in the man who works because the work is what the path requires, not what the world rewards. You must become like the stone beneath the mountain shrine, carved by time, steady beneath centuries of snow, wind, and change. No sign, no spotlight, yet everything rests upon it. Ask yourself, would you still train if no one noticed? Would you still speak truth if no one agreed? Would you still walk the path if no one ever thanked you for it? If the answer is no, then you are still performing. You are still chained. Cut the chain. Let the world applaud what it wants. Let others live for the stage. You are not here to impress. You are here to endure, to refine, to align with something older than praise. There will be seasons when you are invisible. Let them come. There will be times when you are misunderstood. Say nothing. There will be moments when silence is your only reward. Bow to it. Because the one who walks unseen can move freely, and the one who does not depend on applause will never be broken by its absence. This is not withdrawal from life. It is withdrawal from need. And in that space, power returns. The blade does not care who watches, it simply cuts. Discipline is not something you switch on during combat and leave behind at the table. It lives in all things, not just in how you train, but in how you eat, how you speak, how you rest. This is the 8th discipline. Eat, speak, and rest with control. Because the man who only sharpens his sword but lets his tongue run wild is not disciplined. He is decorated. And the man who trains hard but eats like a slave to craving does not own himself. He borrows strength, then spends it through the mouth. You must stop seeing discipline as an event. It is not something you do. It is something you are. And it shows itself most in the quietest parts of your day. Eat only what you need, not what you crave, not what soothes, what fuels. Musashi lived this. Simple meals, small portions, no indulgence, because every indulgence takes from clarity, and clarity is everything. He did not fight just with the sword. He fought through restraint, through silence, through stillness. The same must be true of you. Before every meal, ask, does this serve the path, or does it serve escape? Before every word, ask, does this bring silence closer, or does it waste the breath of the warrior? Words are blades. Wield them with intention. Do not speak to impress. Do not speak to fill space. Speak when it sharpens, when it restores alignment, when it carves through confusion. Even in rest, the warrior remains sovereign. He does not collapse into sleep like one fleeing the battlefield. He enters it with the same calm presence as he enters the fight. Aware, structured, clean. Do not stay up late chasing stimulation. Do not fall asleep with noise in your ears. Do not rise in chaos. Rest is not retreat. It is reinforcement, and you must guard it like you guard your training. This is the thread that binds everything. Discipline is not partial. It touches everything. You can tell who a man is by how he eats, how he speaks, and how he sleeps. Not just how he moves under pressure, but how he moves when no one is watching. Be sharp at the table. Be measured with your voice. Be still in your rest, and all other disciplines will become easier. Because it's not about controlling everything. It's about mastering the rhythm of your days. A pine tree does not sway in all directions. Its needles point up, always, even in wind, even in snow. Let that be your posture, consistent, grounded, disciplined in the hidden layers. They will ask, how do you stay so focused, so present, so unmoved? The answer will not be found in your sword. It will be found in your silence, in your restraint, in how you live when the pressure is gone. That is where the real training happens, in the ordinary, where most men surrender. You remain. The man who fears death fears life, because every hesitation, every excuse, every cowardly moment is a refusal to accept that time is not guaranteed. This is the 9th discipline. Accept death daily, not in despair, not in obsession, but in clarity. The warrior wakes with death at his side. He trains with it in his shadow. He walks with it behind his left shoulder, watching, not with malice, but with truth. Musashi lived this truth. He wrote, "Think of death in the morning and evening." He did not say this to create fear. He said it to destroy it. Because when death becomes familiar, you no longer bargain with time. You act, you write the letter, you say the words, you make the cut. You move, not later, but now. Most men live like they have forever, so they delay their greatness. They hide from confrontation. They sit with their swords still sheathed, waiting for a sign. But death is the sign. It is the reminder that you are on borrowed ground, that every sunrise is a challenge. Will you honor this or waste it again? You were not promised tomorrow. You were not promised health. You were not promised clarity, wealth, or peace. You were promised one thing: you will die. The question is, will you meet that moment with regret in your throat or steel in your spine? Death gives life its meaning. It sharpens your focus. It humbles your ego. It removes the luxury of postponement. Accept it, not emotionally, but physically. Feel it in your breath. Feel it in the ticking of the clock. Feel it in the moments you scroll past the life you were supposed to be living. Then act, not in panic, but in presence. Not in noise, but in force. The man who has already accepted his death moves with freedom. He is not afraid to be alone. He is not afraid to be disliked. He is not afraid to cut ties that drain him. He is not afraid to walk straight into the fire because he knows, this may be my last step. Let it be the right one. The sakura blossoms only once each year. It does not cling. It does not beg to stay. It blooms fully, then falls. That is the example. You must become like that, brief, full, and without resistance. Do not waste time trying to outrun what cannot be outrun. Turn toward it, bow to it, train under its eye. And when the final moment comes, you will not flinch. You will not reach. You will simply breathe and let go. Because the man who accepts death has nothing left to fear, and therefore, nothing left to lose. There will be days when everything inside you wants to quit. Not because you are weak, but because the fire hurts, because the path gets heavy, because your old self is screaming to be spared. This is the 10th discipline. Hold the line, no matter what. Not when it's easy, not when it's seen, not when you're praised for it. Hold it in the dark. Hold it in doubt. Hold it when no one would blame you for letting go. Because what you do when it costs the most reveals what you truly are. Discipline is not built by staying inspired. It is built by remaining unchanged when the wind shifts. Musashi held the line when he was outnumbered, when he fought with wood against steel, when hunger pressed against his ribs and loneliness gnawed at his back. He did not break, he did not stall. He moved forward, or he stood still, but never backward. The world will test you. It will throw storms that blind you. People will disappoint you. Your own mind will betray you. And still, the line must be held. Not because you're guaranteed to win, but because you refuse to surrender what you swore to protect. You made a promise to your higher self, to the version of you that does not flinch. And every time you compromise, you weaken the thread between you and that version. Hold it. When you feel unseen, when you feel tired, when you feel broken, hold it. The pine tree does not decide each day whether it will remain rooted. It simply is. So must your code become non-negotiable. Discipline is not a schedule, it is a vow that does not dissolve in discomfort, a vow that does not ask for applause, a vow that says, "This is who I am, regardless of what comes." You don't rise to greatness by deciding each day who you'll be. You rise by removing that question from your mind. It has been answered already. Your line is the answer. Your line is the path. And when everything else falls, your line is what remains. Yes, it will hurt. Yes, it will stretch. Yes, it will shake. But it will not break, because you will not allow it to. Let others fold. Let others drift. Let others build their lives on feelings, fortune, and fleeting passion. You are not them. You are forged. You are grounded. You are the one who remains standing when the fire consumes the rest. Hold the line, not just today, but every day, even when it's cracked, even when you feel hollow, even when everything screams, let go. Hold it anyway, because that is where the warrior is born, not in victory, but in refusal. Refusal to break, refusal to run, refusal to become anything less than who you were meant to be. After the fire, after the hunger, the silence, the rejection, the cuts that didn't heal, and the mornings where rising felt like death, one thing matters. Did you remain? This is not about perfection, not about triumph, not about being untouched. It is about one thing. Did you stay standing when everything said fall? What remains after the 10 disciplines is this: the man who does not break, not because he was the strongest, but because he was the last one who didn't give up. Musashi remained. He remained through 40 duels. He remained through hunger, exile, isolation. He remained when titles meant nothing, when he could have turned to comfort, when death circled him, not once, but always. He stayed the path, because mastery is not just skill, it is presence through all things. It is staying calm when the crowd shouts. It is staying clear when the storm swallows. It is staying whole when the world fractures around you. The warrior trains for this, not for the prize, but for the ability to stay upright when there is nothing left to lean on. Most men collapse when the vision gets heavy, when loneliness enters, when it stops feeling noble. But that is where the real training begins, when it's just you, your code, and the edge of yourself. No audience, no reward, no sign of light. And still, you walk, you rise, you breathe, you hold the sword steady, not to attack, but because dropping it would mean becoming someone else. You were not built to quit. You were not carved from comfort. You were forged in the dark to become something the world cannot erase. You don't need answers. You need resolve. The tree does not ask if it will survive the winter. It simply prepares. It closes its body. It roots deeper. And it waits, not passively, but with complete trust in what it is. Do the same. Become the man who remains when the crowd vanishes, when the applause stops, when your strength falters and all that's left is breath and memory. Remain anyway. That is the mark of the path, not the sword, not the victories, not the books or the names, but this: he remained. Let that be your inscription. Let that be what they whisper when your name no longer echoes in rooms. That you did not move when others bent, that you stood where others fell, that you chose to keep walking even when it cost everything. Because in the end, the true warrior leaves behind no noise, only tracks. The path does not end, it only deepens. And now, after every cut, every vow, every silence, every refusal to bow, you stand where most men never arrive, at the edge of yourself and the beginning of who you must become. This is not the end. This is the ignition. The final discipline is not a rule, it is a flame. Let the fire stay lit, not the fire of rage, not the fire of ambition, but the slow, silent burn of commitment that does not flicker. You've carved yourself. You've burned away softness. You've remained through cold, hunger, fear, and isolation. Now, you protect what you've built, because the world will try to cool you again. It will try to comfort you back into mediocrity. It will offer softness dressed as success, distraction dressed as opportunity, and pleasure dressed as reward. Refuse it all. You are not here to shine for others. You are here to stay lit for yourself. Musashi did not retire into comfort. Even in his final days, he wrote, trained, taught. He prepared to die as he had prepared to live, with no gap between his word and his stance. He let the fire stay lit. You must now do the same, not through force, but through vigilance. Wake with discipline, sleep with peace, move with purpose, rest without guilt. And above all, never forget how it felt to climb out of the soft self. Keep that memory sharp. Revisit the silence, return to the cold, bow to the repetition. Because mastery isn't earned once, it is protected daily. You are the fire now, not blazing for attention, but burning for direction. When the days are dull, you burn. When the people leave, you burn. When the results don't show, you burn. Because the goal was never to be finished. The goal was to be forged, and forging never ends. Look to the forge itself, the place where steel is reborn through heat. That is your mind now. That is your body. That is your presence in this world. A man who lives not by applause, but by alignment. A man who trains in storms, sleeps in silence, moves with weight, and speaks like the mountain, only when needed. You are not here to be understood. You are not here to be easy. You are not here to be consumed. You are here to walk the path, the one with no end, the one with no map, the one few choose, but all remember. Let the fire stay lit, and if it dims, do not panic. Return to what began it. Wake, stand, train, cut, breathe, remain. This is who you are now, and the world cannot unmake it. Walk, not for approval, not for a rival, but because the path is yours, and the fire walks with you, forever.